So it's the one thing that just works all the time. You don't have to say anything, do anything. It just works on its own. It's the human heart. 7 days a week, it just beats. 365 days of the year, it just continues on a daily basis. About 100,000 beats per day. It's amazing. 35 million times a year. If you live an average lifespan, 2.5 billion heartbeats. And it never needs reminding. It just does what the heart was designed to do. It just works until it doesn't, which is how I found myself in the office of a cardiologist, because mine wasn't working, or at least the way it should work. And after some surgery, I came back to the cardiologist, and he didn't seem too worried, which kind of reassured me. And then he said, "You're at about 50%. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm a dead man walking. And he goes, "No, let me explain to you. It's an ejection fraction. It's a formula. That a healthy heart, 65% of the blood is pumped out, 35% always remains. You're at 50%, but with medication, some other things, you can get back up to 65%, which told me everything. The ejection fraction was the first time I'd ever heard that nor understood. I'm glad he explained it to me. It also began to make more sense in the world that we live in. You imagine the heart sort of saying to the rest of the body, look, it's my blood. I can do with it whatever I want. I'll keep all of it. I won't give any of it out, and it's got a right to do, and I guess it could do that, but what would it do to the rest of the body? Make you terribly unhealthy or even kill you in the process. So you can exist with a heart condition with 15%, but you're going to be sedentary. You won't be able to move. 30%, you can still function nominally, probably have a job, but better be a desk job, and you better have a parking space very close to the front door. So the idea that in a healthy heart, you got 65% pumping out, 35% is retained in the heart itself. So hear these words in a different light. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Because Jesus begins to tie a lot of who we are to our heart. He says it over and over again. It's not what's on the outside. It's not what comes out. It's what's inside of you, what your heart is. And if your heart's in the right place, then everything else falls into place. And he says it over and over again to get your heart right. He doesn't get trapped in the legalism. He's just talking about a generosity, a kindness, compassionate heart, loving heart, a heart like Jesus. If you have that, life begins to flow, and not just your heart in a physical sense, but your life in every sense. The healthiest hearts are the ones, you already know this, that pump out more, that give out more, that share more, feed more, that help more. So the idea of understanding what we hold on to and what we're able to release and give back to this world is something to the degree that you know how important your heart is, because we talk and refer to it all the time, don't we? We talk about a kind heart. We talk about a compassionate heart. Talk about a caring heart. Talk about even guarding our heart, protecting us. There's also a very real sense of having a heavy heart. And there's also something called a broken heart that's very real. Heart is the center of everything that we do. If you're not from the South, you heard a phrase. We say it all the time, don't we? You already know this. What do we say? Bless your heart, which is a very polite way of saying you are an idiot. Yeah. The heart is everything for us. And what Jesus is saying is so important to it, because what he's really concerned about is the hardening of our own heart. That it happens gradually, even if we're not even aware of it. Things that happen to our life, how we experience, how we react to things. So what hardens the human heart? Because in the biblical narrative, it happens over and over again. Pharaoh has his heart hardened. Israel's guilty of having hard heart from time to time. Pharisees specialize in hardened hearts. We're guilty of also having a hardened heart. So when we begin to talk about what does it mean, having a hard heart just means that we no longer have any compassion or empathy. We can't feel things we used to feel maybe early on in our life. We can see something and turn away as if nothing really ever happened. It's easy to avert our eyes, not to do anything about it because it's too big of a problem. It's not our problem. Maybe it's somebody else's to solve. And we gradually over time sort of harden our heart. Maybe it's bitterness or resentment. Things didn't go the way you wanted to go in life. And you just become defensive and hardened. You stay closed in and closed off. or the refusal to forgive. You've been hurt, and so you want to protect your heart. In doing so, you actually destroy it because you can't forgive, and your heart becomes hard and it atrophies. Or you become cynical and jaded, or the sense that maybe you even lose hope, because when you lose hope, you lose it all. That's what Jesus said. That's the hope of the heart. There's always something there to feed it and to share it with others. So when Jesus talks about these three phases of life, he's saying this is something really important that we all experience. One is the sense that we find our life. I mean, we go out and we build our careers and we build our life and we accumulate things and people, and we just sort of want to find something that's safe and secure. We find our life, and then what Jesus said the second season is we lose our life, whether intentionally or unintentionally. We begin to break the walls down, get outside of ourselves. The last part is to find ourselves and our life again. What he's saying is, if you want to find your life, it's not to accumulate more, not to do more, not to seek more. It's to let it go. In fact, spiritual growth is not addition. You don't just do more, it's subtraction. You take off the things that are unnecessary in your life. You find your life by losing yourself in love and service to others. Do this, Jesus says, and you will live. Because what he says is all the things that we're guaranteed that we think are going to save us aren't going to save us in the truest sense of the word. It's not going to be able to save you, not all the things that you accumulate, not all the security that you have, not your savings account or 401 account. It's not your physical prowess. It's not your accomplishments. It's not anything else that's going to really make you whole in the fullest sense. The only thing that's going to make you whole is to be the person God's called you to be. There's nothing else, and nothing else will ever separate us from the love of God in Christ Jesus. So we have Consecration Sunday. Don't get mad at me, because I've heard this before, countless years. Church is only worried about money, and I'm really tired of that. Don't get mad at me. You want to get mad at somebody, get mad at Jesus, because he talks about it a lot, because he knows it's a touch point for a lot of us, because we like to say all the right things, but to do all the right things is what Jesus wants us to do, to connect our hearts and our head together, to be the fullness of a disciple, to have the heart and mind of Jesus. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was in prison, you came to visit me. When I was a stranger, you welcomed me. He's telling you over and over again, if your heart is right, the rest of your life will be right as well. And that's what he wants. Don't get mad at me, because Jesus doesn't really want your money, doesn't want my money. What he wants is our hearts, because he knows if he has our hearts, everything else will flow from it. He talks about the heart being in the right place and doing the right things. Just make it personal. Think about the person who loves you more than anybody else in the world, the person who knows you better than anybody else in the world, the person who will actually tell you the truth, who loves you enough to tell you sometimes the hard truth. You know what? That person knows not only you, they know your heart, and how few people in this world really know our heart. And to have somebody who actually knows our heart and knows us well enough to know what we need to hear, and what we need to do. Jesus knows our hearts. Look at every conversation he ever has recorded in the New Testament. He knows the hearts of people. He knows the hardened hearts of the Pharisees. He also knows the heart of one who has lived on the margins, who has never felt the love of God nor the love of people, who desperately cries out and wonders if anything about him or her is lovable. He knows our hearts, and he knows where it belongs. He tells these little stories about a person who goes out in the field and stumbles upon this great treasure. Didn't know it was there. What does he do? Buries it again and buys the whole field so he never loses it again. What Jesus is saying is, you keep looking out there for happiness. It's inside of you. It's called joy. It's when you find the treasure you didn't even know you had, and it wasn't something that somebody gave you. It's something that God already put inside of you. And when you find out that treasure, and the treasure is you can finally break down the walls and live a life of compassion and love and care for others. Jesus tells these stories because he knows the only way to live is to have more going out of you that's coming back to you. And our hearts are central to it, because our hearts are going to lead us in places we didn't even imagine we might be going. I did a funeral a couple of months ago for a woman, been married to a man, both of them just delightful people. I knew them for years and years. They've been married 72 years. She passed away, but even at the nursing facility where she was finally kept, she had a stroke and some other issues that precluded her from living at home. Husband was there every single day. Even when she was unresponsive, the staff remarked they'd never seen anybody more devoted or committed to a wife than him. He was there every single day and made sure that there was not a day that went by that his wife did not hear his voice. She passed away. About 2 months later, he passed away. And I'm convinced to this day, it's a medical term, it's a broken heart. He could not stand to live without her. You and I have those moments when we understand how important it is, when there's a sense of what life really brings to us. There's a sense that our heart is central to us. So let me tell you another story. I knew an older gentleman who lived in another community, and he had done so much good for that community. He was just an incredibly wonderful guy, but he'd gotten to a pretty advanced age in life and began to have chest pains, and doctors suspected that he had blockages in his heart, which was a pretty good guess at his age. So he went in to have him checked out. They did all the tests. They came back, sat down, and they said, this happens every once in a while, and we're always surprised when it does. He said, yes, you have blockages, but here's what's happened. They found something else. It's called coronary collaterals, meaning when there's real blockage in the artery, the human body, if it's given enough time, literally starts to develop little blood vessels to circumvent, to go around the blockage and reattach itself to the other side of the artery to continue the blood flow. It's the human version of bypass surgery without any surgery. And it doesn't happen very much, but what a marvelous gift God gave in order to heal broken heart and to also bypass the blocked parts of our life. Because there are things that are very real that are blocking our heart. What is it? Fear. It's mistrust. It's a simple hopelessness, thinking that nothing really is going to matter. Or maybe it's fear or hatred or a lack of faith or being cynical and jaded. Those are things that actually block our heart, that keep us locked inside, that we can't break through and get outside. So how do we do this? Jesus is already telling us. When there's more going out of you than coming back to you. When you're pumping out, giving out, sharing out, and if you do that on a regular basis, you become healthy and well. So let me finish with this. You know this movie. It comes around every Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life, George Bailey. Bedford Falls. You remember this story? It's a great movie. It's about a story about a guy who's done so much good in his life, but at the end it feels like a complete failure to the degree that he doesn't think he's done anything good for anybody at any time. He gets up on an icy bridge in the middle of winter, and he wants it to be done with, and he's ready to jump off, commit suicide, and then suddenly an angel named Clarence appears. Do you remember this movie? He takes him back to show him what that town would be without him, and all the good that he brings and does, and the lives that he touched, and he didn't see it, didn't know it, and he's able to go back, and by the end of the movie, he is transformed because he believes that he can truly make a difference in this world. This church has been through a challenging time. We speak the truth here. That's kind of what this place is designed to be. We don't mince words. It's easy to vote. It's really hard to rebuild. It takes sacrifice, and we've got the most incredible core group of people who are all in. And I will tell you, in poker terms, I'm all in too, because I believe in the confidence of God. I believe God is shaping us to become the church that we can be with His grace and with His power. In a sense, I don't want anybody to ever think and imagine what would happen to this community if this church weren't here. What would happen to your life personally if this church never existed? To which I would say, not on our watch, not anytime soon, more importantly, never. Not on our watch, because you and I have work to do, lives to change, hungry mouths to feed, children to raise, battles to fight, people to love, and a gospel to proclaim. Don't give Him your money, give Him your heart, and He'll take care of everything rest. Thanks be to God.